on this week's episode of the Autohaus podcast.
And I worked for a number of assholes that were very successful. So the reason at 22 why I thought, I'm an idiot, I can start a shop, was I saw these guys that were dicks and successful dicks. They made money. Their shops did well. My thing was, wow, they can be dicks and make money. Why can I not just be nice and treat people the way that I mostly was treated when I went into automotive shops before I knew anything about cars and not be successful? So the whole, shop kind of started actually before I had even thought about starting my own shop permanently. I was working for a Subaru shop in Santa Rosa that did pretty well. We had 5 techs, but I was the youngest by like 10 years at least. And I wasn't getting enough hours eventually. At the first I started, they were really busy. That's why they brought me on. I worked a lot faster than a lot of the older guys, so I was done quicker, but then I also ran out of work. So my boss said, if you have side work or if you have people that need help, you can use the shop to do it. You can work on their cars or whatever, on the side, and I'll let you do that. And I did that for a little bit, but it meant having to work around my boss, which is not super fun. So I ended up meeting a family friend at a Thanksgiving gathering, actually. And I met him because he made the comment as I pulled up in my E36 M3, and he pulled up in his Ford Flex or something. He said, BMW, huh? We used to get those to run into the back of us all the time when racing. And I was like, oh, you race cars? And he starts talking about how he used to race Porsches and, all these stories from back in the day. And we get to talking, we become buddies pretty quickly. And he says, yeah, I have, a little shop in my house, and I used to use it to prep my Porsche race car. You should come check it out. So I went to his house, and in a horse barn, literally a converted horse barn, he had cut down a 2-post lift to fit in the roof line of this horse barn. And it was sketchy, but it worked. And literally the only cars you could lift on it were like FRS sized or Porsche sized little sports cars could fit on this lift. And again, we started talking, and he was like, well, if you wanted to work out of here, I'd be open to that. Just help me fix up the Porsche. It's been sitting for a long time. If you help me sell it, you can use the shop. So I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. I think I probably just bought my FRS at this point too. I crashed the M3. Another story. And I had a S52 swapped E30 that I was driving around. And a buddy of mine had just bought the FRS, and it came out, and I saw it, and I was like, that car looks amazing. I want one. Got it. I was still working at this Subaru shop, and now that I had use of this horse barn, I didn't have to show my boss what I was doing or whose cars I was working on. So I started to mod my own car out of this horse barn. And then word kind of got out on the forums that I was working on my car, and people started driving up to me at this horse barn. And I was actually making decent money just to pay for my own modifications on my FRS. And that guy sort of mentored me, the guy that owned the horse barn and house where this place was at. Also then ran a wine sales company and had run a couple other companies. And he saw me working all these cars, and he was thinking you're probably going to start a shop out of this. And I was like, no way. I want to do this to pay for my own modifications, but I had no point thought I would start a shop. So that went on for 6 months where I was just doing side work. It was called Weeb Tech Performance. If people go and find this on the forum.
Dude, that's way back in the day.
Yeah. I think I charged $50 an hour. I did lowering springs, exhaust. I did actually end up doing a couple superchargers up there, which was funny thinking back at it now, because I even installed Shiv Open Flash tablet. I had met him then later on, but I installed an SPD turbo kit on his personal car in that horse barn.
Oh my God.
And this was after Weeb Tech Performance and after some time. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't feel that capable in that shop, but I did a lot of things in that shop where I look back and think, how the hell did I do this in this place? Anyways, the guy that kind of let me use that place told me, and has come up now many times as people ask, you run your shop all by yourself. How the hell can you do this much work? And he had always told me, work as hard as you possibly can, be as tired as you possibly can. And when you finally get to the point where you cannot take it anymore, hire some help. I passed that point like 2 years ago. I'm stubborn, and it's hard to find people that you trust, and that my whole shop is based around me. And it sounds kind of like egotistical, but it's people come to the shop because of me, and they want the kind of experience that I've always given and the kind of work I've always done. So it's hard for me to think, well, I got to find somebody else that can also do that, or I can find somebody else that can give the same kind of experience. And I'm sure there's people that can. I'm just very stubborn, I guess, about finding someone to help me with this place. So that guy's advice really stuck with me. That's the main reason on your question why I haven't found someone to help me, is because I've been like at that point where, man, I really could use some help, but you know, I'm scared if what the economy is going to do. I worry about supporting someone else. I'm fine if, you know, I run out of money or I can't pay my bills. That's fine. I don't want to ever have to put somebody else in that position. So to like have an employee and be worried about paying them enough, or, you know, making sure they have enough hours to work, it's something that's like always on my mind, and obviously have to get past, but it's why I've stayed by myself for this long. So
All the way back from the beginning, we have Neal from the Racers line in Concord, California. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is the man. This is the ZN6 ZC6 specialist in all of NorCal, I would say.
Dude, yeah, it's been a hell of a 5 years, I gotta say. It's actually almost 6 years, I guess. God. Yeah, it really did start and flew by. I don't know what happened, but to pick up a platform that was this big, that then got so like kind of shunned by everyone else in the car community, then dropped off, to then be able to start a shop based solely on this car, to me is kind of hilarious. But I mean, as you're seeing, like there's a lot of these in the Bay Area. We kind of have a little niche spot because the funny thing is, people ask me too, like, oh, is there competitors? Are there other performance shops? Do you fight with other shops over these cars? And even a car like this, a single platform, there's more work than I could ever need. There's more work than I can ever even pass on to other shops. Gary at Elite Performance and I have always been like very cool with each other, knowing that we're on either side of the bay. We never considered each other competition, but more so I've been able to send him customers. He sends me customers. I ask him questions. He asks me questions. We've tracked together, like hung out, you know, whatever. It's funny to think that there are shops that fight over certain cars when there's so much to go around in this area, especially in this nice bubble of the Bay Area where we have, you know, people with a lot of money, people that want to modify their cars. It's just, it's weird to me to even think that there's drama over these kind of things, yeah. Right? It's like,
there's so many gems you just dropped in that one. So first of all, you're right. So many people, so many like major players in business have said it before. There's not like a finite amount of success to be had. There's really enough for everyone.
Correct.
And then the other thing that you mentioned in so many words is that for us, a rising tide raises all of our ships, right?
Exactly.
And
I wish everyone had that mentality, man.
Yeah, dude. Like... So it's hard enough being a small business owner to be a small business owner in the automotive field, and then even smaller in the performance automotive field. You know,
it's the smallest group of people. It's kind of hilarious.
And then plus in NorCal too.
Yeah,
plus in NorCal.
That's the funny thing. And I was insanely naive when I opened this shop. 22 years old. I lived with my girlfriend's mom, who passed away last year, sadly. And I was like, you know, why shouldn't I open my own business? How hard could this be? Which was the dumbest thing I could have ever thought. But it was because I had seen like that little success. I thought I had a shop in a freaking horse barn, and guys were driving to me. I had a customer in Reno drive to Santa Rosa to have me put a supercharger on his car in a horse barn at some random guy's house. I used to meet my customers at Costco, in a Costco parking lot, and they would follow me up the hill. They had to trust that this 22-year-old freaking kid in this FRS was going to pull up and be there, and actually, you know, be there and have them follow to this guy's house where they'd work on his car. It's just kind of nuts that it then worked into this even. So, but the fact that I've never been low on customers or low on the amount of work I've had. I've had a lot of return customers, but also plenty of just one time, you know, they found me for one thing they needed. They got it, and that was it. And to still be in business and do that and have very little drama for the most part, And then look, there's other shops that still work on these. I'm definitely not the only one. Now I'm super grateful to be known as that guy. But to think that like you could have a business based on one single car is still to me kind of nuts.
The Racers line, where did you get that name from?
Actually, so my best friend, so my old place was Weeb Tech Performance, real freaking original. Last name, throw performance at the end, not to knock on that, but and that's the direction I assumed. I'm like, you could be Joe's Automotive as long as you're the best freaking guy, or that you treat people the best. It doesn't matter what your name is. But my buddy and I were talking about it, and I don't actually even remember how he came to that. We are huge Sebastian Vettel fans, F1 fans, and we were like kind of coming up with a logo, which was Sebastian Vettel holding the number 1 up, and we were talking about racing and racers, and I kind of had my idea of what I wanted my logo to be, which was rumble strips of a racetrack. And I think he's kind of an idea guy. It's almost annoying where he just comes up with stuff, but he's like, how about, the Racers something? And there is a shop, or a big one, racing group, the Racers group. And I was like, okay, TRG is a little bit close. And I thought, well, what is the thing that people, or that racers or drivers choose that is the best line? It's the racing line, the Racers line. And that's it. It basically was a kind of culmination of that. I ended up, like a couple years ago, running into Rundy Pope at Thunder Hill, who runs the racing line as his YouTube channel. And I went up to him and gave him my business card. And I was like, hey, mine's trademarked. And he just started laughing. He's like, wow, that is close. And he was like, well, what do you do? I told him, I was like, I work on, BRZs and 86s. And he's like, okay, that's enough of a departure from a YouTube series dealing with cars tracking and the guy that's working on these cars. But the name, it's obscure. I did want a name that was less generic, I guess, so it would be memorable. And to a lot of people, the name still doesn't make sense. The business actually started, and the business's actual name, the LLC name, is NGW Auto Group. It's just my initials, Auto Group. So it did take, I think, like 6 months for even me to come up with the name with my buddy and name this place the Racers Line. And it stuck, and now it's like well known enough that people kind of remember the name because it's a little weird. It's not like a normal shop name like that. So it is TRL, if you're old enough, is Total Request Live. So.
Okay. So 2 things. When I heard the shop name was that, and I didn't want to say it. Yeah. And then the other one was
I'm happy to laugh about it.
Fast and Furious #1. Do you remember what the shop was?
A couple times companies have sent me boxes and written the Racer's Edge just a joke. I believe even Elite Performance has done that to me for fun, which I love. Oh my god. That's the kind of shit that I love in this automotive community. Is everybody kind of knows everybody. The car community is outrageously small, which is why you can't burn bridges and be a bad person for the most part. People get away with it, but yeah, I like that we can joke about that kind of stuff. I think it's funny because I get comments on that even in my YouTube channel, like the occasional, oh, the Racer's Edge, you're gonna go get some parts for Harry's and get Hector those spoon engines. It's like, yeah.
You tow it with the Ford Lightning.
Yeah. I gotta paint my truck red and throw a bunch of boxes in the back and have a bunch of cars follow me to the track every time.
So last year at SEMA, I had the pleasure of just walking the strip and just shooting the shit with you.
So fun, man.
And 2 particular stories that I remember, and we'll talk about Rundy Pope first. Yeah. How I know Randy's a cool guy. First of all, we saw him and we politely introduced ourselves. And when he left, he made the effort to come back to our table and say bye to us. And then the second thing,
easy, dude. Yeah,
someone at our table ordered like the big beer at that Brauhaus.
Hoffenbrauhaus.
Yeah. And I saw Randy like give us the thumbs up for the big beer, and I saw him like laugh his ass off because the workers will like spank you at that place. I was like, dude, Randy is like such a down to earth dude, man.
He is just genuinely a nice guy. The 5 minutes I talked to him, I'm like, oh, so you're exactly how you are in every video you shoot. You're genuinely just a cool guy that loves cars. And that is the 5-minute excerpt I got from him, basically.
And then I think the second most memorable was from you when we went to that club after SEMA. Mm-hmm. And I asked you, I hadn't really had a good conversation with you yet, but I asked you like, what is the key to business success been for you? And the thing for me was like, you were so well known in the community for this one chassis, and plus you're a young guy. How old are you right now?
28.
28. I think I met you when you were 26. I think.
Yeah.
So like me and Grant are like, dude, how did this guy get to this point? And I remember, what did you tell me? What is the key to business success?
Not being a piece of shit.
Well, I think that the exact words was "don't be a dick."
Don't be a dick.
But
yes.
that one's pretty close.
don't be a dick it sounds bad and easy, right? Because how hard is it to not be there? And to be honest, after 6 years of this, I can understand how frustrating and like angry some shop owners can be, or even just people in the industry in general. There's a lot of stuff to piss you off and make you come off as an asshole. And I worked for a number of assholes that were very successful. So the reason at 22 why I thought, I'm an idiot, I can start a shop, was I saw these guys that were dicks and successful dicks. They made money. Their shops did well, and they had a great, usually, team with them. They had great guys that worked for them, or like a really good support staff. And maybe they weren't dicks when they started their shop. They just made it to that point, because honestly, dealing with people every day is difficult. And I'm sure they had their fair share of difficult customers. At some point, their demeanor changed and they became kind of dicks. But my thing was, wow, they can be dicks and make money. Why can I not just be nice and treat people the way that I mostly was treated when I went into automotive shops before I knew anything about cars, and not be successful? And it's helped me a lot. Like, it really.
One personal question I'm interested in is, you have a lot of support from aftermarket parts manufacturers, like direct support. Mm-hmm. So a few I'm thinking of is Harrop Superchargers, Edelbrock Superchargers, and then also Zach from who does tuning.
Yeah, Zach, formerly of Delicious and now of Counter Space Garage.
How did you acquire or develop these relationships? Do you have like direct manufacturer support for these parts now?
So yeah, Harrop was interesting because I can't tell you how I originally came upon Harrop Superchargers. I was researching, just more force induction. I had seen the kit pop up. I want to say probably from Moto East, who's not really around anymore, but an East Coast tuner. They still tune. I just believe they don't have a shop anymore. Had posted one little thing about the Harrop, and I was like, wow, another supercharger kit. I love positive displacement kits. The Edelbrock kit was out and also great. It was one of my favorite kits, but I wanted something to track, and I had a shop car with a Jackson Racing supercharger on it, which I loved as well. I prefer the power delivery of a positive displacement kit. So I actually just reached out to them, I think on Facebook or something ridiculous. And my sales rep at the time, this guy Andrew, who was amazing, no longer with Harrop, but gave me kind of the chance to talk with them. They wanted kind of a big asking for a dealer. They wanted me to promise to sell a lot of stuff and import a lot of stuff. And I said to them, well, what makes your kit better than Edelbrock? When I became a dealer for Edelbrock, I drove in the same day down to Edelbrock, toured their entire facility, talked to them, and drove back in one day, just because that's the kind of connections I like making. I want to meet people. I like talking to people, as you can see. I'll never shut up. But that's Edelbrock and Harrop was, they were cool about it. They do business a little bit differently in Australia, I will admit. But they told me straight up, they said, we employed 2 engineers specifically for cooling. And they spent so much time dealing with cooling in hot Australia. That kind of made me think, wow, these guys are really trying hard to produce a good kit for this chassis. I want in. It's cool. It's different. I want to be the guy that brings this, to the States. And I did. I promised him, a decent amount of money in sales the first year, which I did do, and have now continued to be a dealer with them. I actually went and bought a car, and then with Zach, hooked up with him for the CARB process and got the CARB approved and the kit CARB approved, which was an amazing process and very
so you and Zach got that kit CARB approved?
Correct.
How does that work? That was exactly my next question, because I was like, I saw the announcement, I was like, no way.
I don't know how. So it's way more of a simple process than I think people understand. It's not a simple amount of money to have the test done, and I learned a ton through the process. I actually found out that is third-party testing that is done. We ended up doing it through SEMA Garage. They have an unbelievable facility down in Chino Hills. They have I think $10 million facility, dyno and clean room and regulated air. It's really, really nuts. But I guess the simplest answer is you try to keep the car's emissions as close to stock as you can, but with whatever part you've added. And so we we did that, and we did it relatively quickly, and it passed easily. The actual process to then get the CARB EO number is what took a very, very long time. And I was not involved in that process at all. I supplied the car, Harrop supplied the kit, Zach did the tuning. We did 5,000 miles of drivability testing, so it drives amazing. Plug for the Harrop CARB tune. But yeah, it's a process I would like to do more of. Honestly, I like being able to modify cars and keep them legal to California. I'm not a person that thinks all race cars should be dumping horrible pollution. I'm not like a green loving Prius person either, but I think that there's ways to make fast cars efficient without having them to be dirty, which is why I was so interested in doing this CARB process. And it ended up being, it was neat. It was really cool. I learned a ton, networked again, met a bunch of people through SEMA Garage, and finally got the CARB approval, which was like the biggest sigh of relief ever. I'm not gonna lie. We had some bumps, and it turned out good. And now I've sold a bunch of kits already. So
yeah, I know the rumor is that when you're buying an expensive part, it's like they say you're paying for that CARB sticker.
Yeah, and it's yeah. Sorry to interrupt you, but
no, go ahead.
That's dead on. I mean, it's not cheap. It's not a cheap process. Even I can tell you, as much as I know, to test a completely stock car, it was like $3,500, and that's just to get the numbers to then use to go through the process. So I don't know what the total number was, but you do have to have a solid investment. But you do that because you'll sell. I think like 18 states have adopted CARB. So
that's right. That's right.
You do it because the business will have, and that. Another story. The only reason I was going to SEMA for a long time, for 3 years in a row, I flew there to meet almost exclusively with Harrop. So there was one Friday I went to SEMA. I think it was my second time going. I flew in 7 a.m., walked through the show, met with a couple people, met with Harrop. I flew home at 8 p.m. same day. So you just have to do crazy stuff sometimes for business, but yeah, it's going to pay off for them. And they did a Tundra supercharger that just went through the CARB process that will pass. It actually passed. They're waiting for the EO number as well. And I actually just installed one of those superchargers a couple weeks ago. It was pretty cool.
For you guys just listening to the podcast, we did a dyno day. So like 5 cars today on the dyno. And the first thing I said was like, oh my God, like a Tundra was on that thing.
Yeah, that was scary. Strapping a truck down on the dyno is not, I give it to like diesel shops and guys tuning trucks. Not fun to have a 6,000 plus pound vehicle standing still doing 120 miles an hour on the dyno. It's terrifying.
Once upon a time I had my smog license, so like I'd get the bro trucks.
You know exactly.
Yeah, and I'd be like, well, say a prayer.
It turned out good. Yeah, it was an interesting process to even do the whole kit, and I installed it on the dyno lift, so I never even I dynoed the truck, pulled it forward, installed the supercharger kit, pulled it back, and dynoed it again.
On these cars, what are you doing most of these days?
I actually do a lot of just scheduled maintenance. Like today, in the last 2 days, I've done 3 60K services because I'm half the price of the dealership, and they don't actually know what they're doing half the time. Other than that, lowering springs or suspension coilovers, really big. These cars, everyone wants wheels and a drop. Changes the look of the car so much. I still am doing, at the bare minimum, probably 2 superchargers a month, if not more. I've had months where I've done 5 or 6 superchargers on these cars, which I find ridiculous. The fact there's 200 something 86s in the Bay Area right now running around boosted that people, would never expect, is really cool to me, to be honest. But I would say main thing, definitely suspension is, people do understand these cars handle super well and benefit from some suspension upgrades. So that's probably still my main business.
Let's say I'm a new owner of these vehicles. What are some common problems or some things to watch out for when I'm like buying one or like the initial ownership of these things?
These engines, and especially, were put together so randomly, either very, very well or they were Friday cars. The timing cover oil leaks, valve cover oil leaks, even some rear main oil leaks on these cars don't look that bad, but are really expensive to fix. So if people are checking out these cars and you see puddled up oil or a lot of oil in the under panel, a lot near like the cam phasers or around the bottom, expect to spend a couple grand getting this thing buttoned up oil leak wise. Honestly, that's probably one of the most annoying issues to fix on this car. Other than that, I mean, it's like any other car, wear items, wheel bearings, suspension wearing out and blown. I mean, I see shocks blown at 60,000 miles in these cars a lot of time. from bad roads, from sometimes lowering springs, things along those lines. But I would say, other than the drivetrain, these are not problematic cars. I mean, I can count on one hand how many times I've replaced like a window switch or regulator or something actually electronic that failed. It's not super common. It's really the Subaru part that's kind of hit and miss, and that's any Subaru tech will tell you that. They can be excellent cars. They could also be headaches.
Yeah, I know you expressed just a second ago that I'm probably going to misquote you, but these aren't complicated, but I feel like they are because not even the dealer can get these right.
I think what it is that people don't want to spend the time that it takes to do it correctly. And it is, to be fair, I'd much rather rebuild an EJ engine all day long. That motor's around for 25 years. It's held together with gaskets. It uses really basic things to rebuild. I used to be at that Subaru shop I worked at in Santa Rosa. I was a head gasket guy because I could do a head gasket job in the car in 6 hours. That was fun to me because it was an easy job. It was very mechanical, or it was like everything I was doing. It didn't require really a lot of skill. It was focus and, good toolmanship, I guess, and properly putting things together. But it was fun because I knew that if I put it together correctly, it would work correctly. With the FA motors, you could think you've done everything right. You could silicone everything perfectly, you think. And it could still go wrong and still leak. And that's what they do at the factory. They silicone these entire engines with what I assume machines or like large silicone guns. And they're so wildly different that's why you get cars that are leaking like with 10,000 miles on them. And then you have guys with 150,000 miles still going strong.
Yeah.
It doesn't, there's very little consistency, I guess, when they're manufacturing these. So
I'll tell you an exact story. So I know when the 13 came out, when these things first came out, and then I worked until I saw the 14 model year. So in that time, I've seen different color sealant. I've seen, I've seen where the sealant is like, it spreads out like they put enough, but it still leaks anyway. Like, what's going on with this? Yeah, so you put it in a good way. Some of these are Friday cars.
It's weird because I have customers. We had a guy with 110,000 miles, and then we put a supercharger on it. And he ran it for another 20,000 miles. The car never had an issue. I think it had a small timing cover, like not even leak. It was buildup, dirt and stuff. He sold the car like that. And then I've had guys with like 40,000 miles and the motor's pissing from everywhere. And they also haven't maybe kept up on maintenance all the way, which goes a long way. But I mean, you can only change the oil so frequently and still end up having leaks. It's like, it's not people's fault all the time with maintenance, but I don't know, man, that when people ask me like, are these cars reliable? And I'm like, I track a car with, twice its horsepower nearly, beat the crap out of it with aero and decently sticky tires, and it's still going strong. And there's people that get rod knock with stock engines. I have a car in here that's, like I said, it's on its fourth engine. And I have no idea why. He doesn't track the car. He said people that have installed it maybe did a bad job, but it seems to be extremely situational and random. I wish I could kind of pinpoint what made these cars work better, but it's like any other car. You maintain it as best as you can, and you really hope it doesn't break.
What are some of these key maintenance items to do the best we can to keep these at least maintained?
Honestly, on the FRS, run good fuel. It's so crazy to me how many people I talk to. They're like, yeah, I fill up, wherever's cheapest. I've even had people that didn't use premium in this car, in a car that barely runs on California premium as it is. People running flex fuel, change your oil more. You can't not hurt a car by changing the oil constantly. I used to have guys that do it every other track day, and it's kind of wasteful, definitely, but you're not hurting it. And the car having clean oil, it's going to be much happier. Yeah, regular fluid changes. People ignore brake fluid on this car for whatever reason. Clutch fluid. Even the really basic stuff will make these cars last really long. Getting alignments too. A lot of people will wear through their tires and wonder why they wear unevenly. Get the alignment checked like once or twice a year. It's not expensive. Our roads are horrible, so they're getting knocked out of alignment. Things are getting bent and tweaked. Little stuff like that will keep cars happier a lot longer. It's really sadly basic, but it works.
Well, Neal, we're just about at our half an hour mark, and you got a crowd of people out there waiting for you. So I just want to say thank you so much for this opportunity. to podcast with you. Thank you so much for doing the dyno day
absolutely.
with us, man. I had a blast, and it's been so cool to like see your shop in the.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun. And congrats on starting your own. I'm really going for it, I guess, with your own. I'm gonna send people to you because I know I'm already overwhelmed as it is, and I'm actually really stoked for you. But yeah, today was super fun. I'm glad everyone got to come and kind of hang out. And I'm glad we got to do this. We talked about this at SEMA.
Oh my God, yeah.
Feels like it's been a long time, but it was fantastic to finally sit down and talk to you. So thank you.
Likewise, man. And then can you shout out your social? Where can people find you?
Yeah. So Instagram is literally at the Racers Line all together. Facebook, same thing, at the Racers Line, and YouTube channel, which is tiny but has some track videos, and my famous transmission pull in 20-minute video is just the Racers Line. So really straightforward.
Neal from the Racers Line. Thank you again, man.
Thanks again, dude.
That's it for this week's episode. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, as reviews really help support us. You can do it straight from your desktop. Don't even need an Apple device. This is Autohaus Z. Thanks for all the support, you guys.